The substance that I chose to make a presentation out of is caffeine, brought to you by Red Bull. The reason I chose this topic is because caffeine is an essential part of my high school life. In the graphic to the right here, you can see that you have a medium-sized coffee, a large-sized coffee, and for those procrastinators out there, you have the bucket full of coffee that is necessary in order to pull an all-nighter right before a test. And also, Mr. Scaringi was traumatized by last year's mustard gas video brought to you by Alex Hong, and would not allow anybody to do that substance this year. As you can see on the slide here, caffeine has the chemical formula of C8H10N4O2. It is a bitter-tasting, white, odorless powder that you don't want to get mixed up with other types of white powders. You don't really need to know the melting point, just don't touch it when it's melted, or else you'll get your hands burned off. It's soluble in water, and it keeps you awake by blocking adenosine receptors and inhibiting phosphodiesterase. People have been drinking caffeinated substances since as early as the Paleolithic age, so it was really the isolation of pure caffeine that was significant for chemistry. This was done by a guy with a name I can't pronounce. My best attempt is Fredlieb Ferdinand Rung. And this guy, he isolated the caffeine into white crystals. Fredlieb Ferdinand Rung was so brilliant that he isolated pure caffeine within a few months of getting his hands onto some high-quality Arabian mocha beans, and ran into absolutely no problems along the way that the internet deems significant enough to list. So anyways, since people had been drinking caffeine since very early on, pure caffeine didn't really have much of an effect on society. However, if you do get your hands on any of that stuff, don't eat it because you will die from caffeine overdose. Caffeine has long been used as a stimulant in various cultures across the world, such as European coffee houses to Chinese tea drinking. Caffeine was also one of the most profitable cash crops and contributed significantly to the slave trade, as you have learned in at least 3 different history classes. Coffee workers also nowadays, they come from marginalized populations that are subject to hazardous working conditions and low wages. However, despite this, the global caffeine market is projected to continue rising. Additionally, research on caffeine points to its medicinal use. Caffeine is really not a very environmentally friendly substance. Yes, you can use coffee pulp to help forests grow back, as seen in Costa Rica, but you have to be careful when you're doing that, otherwise you could just end up killing all the seeds that you plant, because caffeine kills seedlings. Caffeine also pollutes the water, which harms the animals, including algae and fish and whatnot. There's also an alarming amount of pesticide used in its farming, and it causes an alarming amount of deforestation. If you drink 1 cup of coffee, then you are responsible for 1 square inch of forest being cut down. Also, another fun fact that nobody wants to know is that the world's most expensive types of coffees involve either Indonesian palm civets eating and then excreting coffee beans, or elephants doing the same thing. And these types of coffees can cost up to $100 per cup. My action plan to combat caffeine addiction is to convince people to just not do their homework at night. So instead of using caffeine to stay awake at school, they would just get enough sleep at night and then procrastinate all their homework until the day it's due. But since you procrastinated it, you'll be older and therefore wiser. And therefore, since you are wiser, you will be able to do your homework faster, thus completing it within a shorter amount of time and sparing your sleep schedule.
My style is ridiculous.
Skibbity dum dum dum, yes yes. Skibbity dum dum dum, yes yes. Skibbity dum dum dum, yes yes. Skibbity dum dum dum.